Every morning at sunrise, when the streets were still wrapped in a sleepy silence and the first rays of daylight brushed softly over the rooftops, a tiny figure could be seen walking down Maplewood Lane. She was small, far too small to be walking two large dogs on her own, but there she was, day after day, holding their leashes with both hands as if her entire world depended on it. People admired her from afar, smiling at the sweet, determined little girl in the oversized yellow sweater. But no one knew that behind her gentle steps, behind her quiet smile, she carried a secret so heavy it threatened to crush her fragile heart. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our W Insights. Your support truly makes these stories possible. Her name was Irina Solberg, a bright-eyed 9-year-old with chestnut hair that danced wildly in the morning breeze. She walked the same route each day, guiding the two dogs, Rusty, a golden retriever with wise, patient eyes, and Shadow, a black and gray husky who moved with a restless, protective energy. To anyone watching, they looked like family pets, perhaps belonging to Irina's home. But the truth was far more complicated. Irina didn't own these dogs. She barely owned anything at all. Ever since her mother, Lyra, had fallen seriously ill, Irina's world had collapsed in quiet, devastating ways. Lyra had once been the warm light of their little house, working long hours at the local bakery, always humming old songs and filling their home with the smell of fresh bread. But 3 months ago, illness had swept in like an unforgiving storm. Lyra could no longer walk, barely ate, and could not work. The medical bills grew like a mountain Irina could never climb. With no father in the picture and no relatives willing to help, Irina found herself in a place no child should ever stand, forced to choose between survival and surrender. It was on one of those desperate days that she met Rusty and Shadow. Their owner, Mr. Halden, an elderly man with trembling hands and kind eyes, lived just 2 streets away. He struggled to walk after a recent injury, and his dogs, though full of love, were restless without their morning routine. When Irina stopped to pet them one afternoon and they responded with enthusiastic affection, Mr. Halden had made an offer. If she walked them each morning, he would pay her a small amount every week. It wasn't much, but for Irina, it meant medicine for her mother, bread for breakfast, and maybe even hope. And so, Irina woke before the sun, her tiny feet carrying the weight of responsibility far beyond her age. She walked the dogs, collected her payment, bought whatever food she could, and hurried home before anyone noticed she never attended school anymore. She had quit silently, slipping out of the world of children and classrooms, and stepped into a life far too adult for a 9-year-old girl. For weeks, people only saw the charming side of the little girl and the big dogs. They smiled, waved, and went about their mornings, unaware of the hidden cracks beneath her brave face. But one bright, crisp morning, everything began to unravel. Mrs. Carden, a retired teacher who enjoyed gardening at dawn, noticed Irina lingering outside the pharmacy, clutching a handful of coins, her eyes fixed on a bottle of cough syrup she clearly couldn't afford. Her sweater sleeves were worn thin, her hair tangled with exhaustion, and her small shoulders trembled from both the cold and something deeper. Mrs. Carden's heart pinched with concern. She approached gently, and Irina flinched like a child who had learned to fear being noticed. Before she could ask anything, Rusty nudged Irina with his warm, golden nose, as if telling her it was okay. Shadow pressed against her other side protectively. Mrs. Carden realized then that the dogs weren't simply pets, they were guardians of a child carrying a burden much too big. That same morning, people along Maplewood Lane began whispering as they noticed how thin Irina had become, how tired her eyes looked, how desperate she seemed as she walked quickly home after completing her task. Rumors spread, concern grew, and soon enough, curiosity turned into action. It was Mr. Halden, limping on his cane, who finally knocked on Irina's door, worried after seeing her rush home pale and shaky earlier that day. When the door creaked open, what he saw stunned him. The small home was dimly lit, smelling faintly of medicine and cold air. On the couch lay Lyra Solberg, her face sunken, her breathing strained, her eyes soft with pain she tried to hide. Irina stood beside her like a tiny shield, her hands trembling but her jaw set with fierce determination. The truth spilled out in broken pieces: missed rent, hunger-filled days, treatments they couldn't afford, school long abandoned. Irina spoke quietly, almost apologetically, as if she were ashamed of needing help. Mr. Halden felt his heart shatter. No child should carry such a load. Within hours, Maplewood Lane transformed. Neighbors gathered, shock turning into compassion. Groceries filled their small kitchen. Mrs. Carden took charge of getting Lyra medical help. Others arranged a community fund. Even the local school offered support to reinstate Irina's education. What had been a lonely battle fought in silence became a collective effort of kindness. But the moment that truly broke people's hearts came when Irina, overwhelmed by the sudden wave of help, sank to her knees beside Rusty and Shadow, wrapping her arms around them tightly. Through tears, she whispered how they had been her only strength, her only friends, the only ones who saw her pain. The dogs nuzzled her face, licking away her tears as if telling her she was safe now, truly safe. As days turned into weeks, Lyra began receiving proper treatment, slowly regaining her strength. Irina returned to school, supported by a community that vowed never to let her face life alone again. And every morning, she still walked Rusty and Shadow, not out of desperation now, but out of love. The sight of the three of them strolling under the rising sun became a symbol on Maplewood Lane, a gentle reminder of how powerful kindness can be when people choose to see, choose to care, and choose to act. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our W Insights. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world of hope, compassion, and second chances. Before we end, please leave a comment telling which moment moved you the most. It means more than you know. And with that, Irina's story stands as a beacon in the daylight, a reminder that even in the hardest moments, kindness can bloom where least expected, turning silent struggles into stories of hope, healing, and the unstoppable strength of the human spirit.